wasting the people's time, results in docked pay, forcing many workers to forego lunch and even bathroom breaks. At the outset of the pandemic, Chinese demand for food products skyrocketed. Public authorities identified slaughterhouses as essential enterprises, and management began ordering employees to put in ever longer shifts without regard for the risk of viral contagion. It was that cavalier attitude that prompted Zhang to take action. One day in April, he led a walkout of his colleagues. Their demand was reasonable. They called simply for the complex to be temporarily closed and more stringently sanitized, because several workers had become sick. Zhang was terminated from his job that very day. His actions had been immoral, unacceptable, and arguably illegal, wrote the company's general counsel, Liu Wei, in an internal memo characterizing Zhang as a useful tool in its ongoing plan to tarnish dissident workers. Voicing dissent at a state-owned firm in the People's Republic, never exactly easy, could now be framed as a sanitary threat and a violation of Chinese law. When foreign reporters caught whiff of the story, the slaughterhouse insisted it had done nothing wrong. Dismissing the notion that many employees were aggrieved by the slaughterhouse's handling of the pandemic, a spokeswoman pointed out that the vast majority continued to show up every day and do heroic work, helping feed the Chinese people amid a once-in-a-century crisis. Zhang, meanwhile, remains unemployed as of this writing. The regime continues to silence internal dissidents and to ferociously resist efforts to organize workers. Then there is Russia, where Vladimir Putin maintains a chokehold on a population battered by his unjust foreign wars and a corrupt government dominated by well-connected oligarchs. To lend his misrule a veneer of popular legitimacy, the Russian strongman has turned to the dictator's playbook, mandating popular attendance at pro-regime and pro-war rallies, or else face financial punishment by the state. In the summer of 2022, for example, while Russia's armed forces were prosecuting a barbarous war against Ukraine, thousands of employees of Gazprom, the state-run energy company, were told that they had to attend Putin's speech at the firm's headquarters in St. Petersburg, or to take the day off without pay. The Novaya Gazeta, one of the few reformist outlets still permitted to operate in the country, reported that a Gazprom contractor sent a memo to the company's employees informing them that attendance was not mandatory. Yet the memo made clear that only employees who arrived at the hours-long event would receive pay. No QR scan at the entrance, no pay. The purpose of the event was to celebrate Russia's energy dominance, but Putin seized the opportunity to bash the Ukrainian government and its NATO allies, saying, "The West and its lapdogs in Kiev tout free speech, but try criticizing how the Ukrainians treat our Russian-speaking people over there." All of this at an event sponsored by the Kremlin and funded by Russian taxpayers. According to the Novaya Gazeta, employees were warned that they needed to maintain decorum during the president's visit. No yelling, shouting, protesting, or anything viewed as resistance will be tolerated at the event, the internal memo read. A Gazprom spokesperson told journalists that the Putin speech was no different from when the company invites famous Russian athletes to share inspirational messages with workers. Yet the element of intimidation was unmistakable. Failure to attend meant foregoing overtime wages otherwise built into employees' ordinary work weeks, a penalty that only a handful of workers were prepared to tolerate, given the dire economic conditions in Putin's Russia. Nearly 95% attended the speech, per the Novaya Gazeta. Finally, there is my native Iran, whose ruling regime has spent the last decade strengthening its arsenal of medieval repression with a vast digital surveillance apparatus. Consider the fate of Abdullah Pourmoradi, a member of the Basij militia in central Iran, who in the spring of 2019 found himself out of a job and socially ostracized after messages mocking his superiors were found in his personal email account. As a junior-level database analyst for the militia, Pourmoradi was permitted to access his personal accounts on his Basij device. Little did he know, however, that his commanders had installed keylogger software on his computer that recorded everything he typed. It's an all-too-common tactic deployed by dictatorships to catch thought crimes and to entrap members of unpopular